In the silence between thoughts, we glimpse the true nature of existence. What we call reality emerges from consciousness like waves from the ocean, not separate but a continuous expression of the same fundamental essence. Consider how quantum physics reveals that observation collapses wave functions into particles. Before measurement, existence dwells in possibility. After consciousness engages, reality manifests. This is not merely scientific curiosity, but points to a profound truth. Consciousness and reality are intertwined in an inseparable dance. The unified field theory seeks what ancient wisdom has always known, that beneath the appearance of separation lies an undivided wholeness. All forces, all manifestations, all beings arise from and return to this singular field of pure potentiality. What physicists call zero-point energy mirrors what contemplatives have termed emptiness, not nothingness, but the pregnant void from which all forms emerge. When you sit beneath the Bodhi tree of your own awareness, you may discover that consciousness does not perceive reality. It creates it. Your thoughts, perceptions, and beliefs are not passive observers but active participants in the universe's continuous unfolding. The universe is not made of matter, but of consciousness. Matter is simply consciousness vibrating at different frequencies, crystallizing into seemingly solid forms like ice forming from water yet never ceasing to be essentially water. This understanding transcends intellectual knowledge. It must be directly experienced through the stilling of mental fluctuations. When the ripples of thought subside, the mirror of mind reflects reality undistorted by concepts and conditioning. Suffering arises when we mistake the reflection for the source, when we grasp at forms believing them separate from the consciousness that births them. Liberation comes with recognizing that you are not merely in the universe is within you. The path is one of awakening to what already is. Not gaining something new, but recognizing what has been present all along, the luminous nature of mind that is both empty of inherent existence and simultaneously the source of all phenomena. The luminous dance, consciousness as the creator of reality, the quantum mirror. In the space between heartbeats lies the eternal now, the only moment that truly exists. From this timeless present, consciousness orchestrates the symphony of existence, not as a passive observer, but as the very fabric from which reality is woven. When quantum physicists discovered the measurement problem, they stumbled upon what contemplatives have known for millennia. The observer cannot be separated from the observed. The electron exists as probability waves until consciousness interacts with it. In that moment of engagement, potentiality collapses into actuality. This is not mere coincidence, but reveals the fundamental nature of existence. Consider the double-slit experiment, where particles behave as waves when unobserved, yet manifest as particles when measured. This demonstrates that consciousness does not merely perceive reality, it participates in its creation. The universe exists in a state of superposition, a field of infinite possibilities, until consciousness engages and manifests specific outcomes. What appears as solid matter is mostly empty space vibrating with energy. Your body, seemingly so substantial, is composed of atoms that are 99.99999% vacuum. The solidity you experience is a perceptual construction, not an inherent property of reality. The chair you sit upon, the ground beneath your feet, these are not solid in absolute terms, but appear so through the interpretive lens of consciousness. Quantum entanglement further illuminates this interconnectedness. When particles become entangled, they remain instantaneously connected across any distance. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. Yet it perfectly aligns with the non-local nature of consciousness. Just as entangled particles respond to each other instantaneously across space, all manifestations of consciousness remain intrinsically connected beyond the limitations of space and time. The uncertainty principle teaches that we cannot simultaneously know a particle's position and momentum with perfect precision. This is not merely a limitation of measurement, but reveals the fundamental fluidity of reality. The universe maintains a degree of indeterminacy that allows consciousness the freedom to shape and direct its manifestation. 2. The unified field of being. The quest for a unified field theory in physics mirrors the perennial insight of spiritual traditions that beneath apparent diversity lies perfect unity. What physicists seek mathematically, mystics experience directly: the singular field of consciousness from which all phenomena arise. String theory proposes that the fundamental constituents of reality are not point particles but vibrating strings of energy. The different vibration patterns create what appear as different particles, forces, and dimensions. Similarly, consciousness expresses itself through varied vibrations, manifesting the rich tapestry of existence while remaining essentially one. The unified field can be understood as pure consciousness, unbounded, self-aware, and inherently creative. It does not exist within space and time, rather space and time exist within it. This field is not an object of perception, but the subject that perceives, not something to be discovered, but the discoverer itself. When you turn attention upon itself, consciousness becoming aware of consciousness, you touch this unified field directly. The boundary between subject and object dissolves, revealing what has been called non-dual awareness. Here, the perceiver, the act of perceiving, and that which is perceived merge into a seamless whole. This understanding transcends intellectual knowledge. It must be realized through direct experience, through the quieting of conceptual thought. In deep meditation, when awareness rests in its own nature without grasping at objects, the unified field reveals itself not as a concept, but as your very being. The unified field of consciousness does not operate through mechanical causality, but through resonance and harmony. Just as a vibrating string can cause another string to vibrate at the same frequency, consciousness resonates with itself across its various manifestations. This explains phenomena that materialist science struggles to accommodate: synchronicities, intuitive knowledge, and the sense of profound interconnection that can arise in moments of clarity. 3. The architecture of experience. Consider how your experience is constructed. Colors, sounds, tastes, textures. These do not exist as such in the world out there. Light of various wavelengths enters your eyes. Air pressure variations reach your ears. Molecules interact with receptors in your tongue and nose. From these bare sensory inputs, consciousness constructs the rich, phenomenal world you inhabit. The redness of the rose, the sweetness of honey, the melody of birdsong, these qualities are not inherent in the objects themselves, but are brought into being through the alchemy of consciousness. Science confirms this. The universe consists of quantum fields and particles, none of which possess the qualities we experience. Those qualities emerge within consciousness. Your brain does not produce consciousness any more than a radio produces the music it plays. Rather, the brain is an instrument through which universal consciousness localizes and expresses itself in human form. It is a receiver and transmitter, processing and filtering the infinite field of consciousness into the specific experience of being human. The world you perceive is not simply out there waiting to be discovered. It is continuously co-created through the interaction between consciousness and its own manifestations. Each perception, each thought, each feeling contributes to this ongoing creation. You do not live in the world lives within you, within the vast space of awareness that you fundamentally are. This understanding transforms how we approach the challenges of existence. If consciousness creates reality, then shifting consciousness shifts reality. The patterns, habits, and beliefs through which you filter experience are not fixed, but fluid. Through practices that cultivate awareness and presence, you can participate more consciously in the creation of your experienced reality. 5. Suffering and liberation. Suffering arises from mistaking appearances for reality, from grasping at forms as though they were separate from consciousness itself. When you identify exclusively with the body-mind, you create an artificial boundary between self and other, between me and the world. This perceived separation is the root of suffering, the sense of being a separate self, a me that exists independently of everything else, is a construction of thought. It is not a discovery, but a creation, a pattern of thinking that consciousness adopts when it forgets its own nature. This forgetting is not a cosmic mistake, but part of consciousness, exploring its own possibilities. Liberation comes with remembering what you truly are. Not the limited self you think yourself to be, but the boundless awareness within which all experience arises. This remembering is not intellectual, but experiential, a direct recognition of your fundamental nature. The path to this recognition involves turning attention away from the objects of consciousness and toward consciousness itself. Rather than being absorbed in thoughts, emotions, and sensations, you become aware of the awareness that knows these experiences. This shift in perspective, from identified to witnessing, begins to dissolve the illusion of separation. As identification with the separate self diminishes, natural compassion emerges. You recognize all beings as expressions of the same consciousness that you are. Their suffering and joy are not separate from your own. This is not a moral position arrived at through reasoning, but a natural expression of recognizing the unified field of being. The liberated state is not an escape from the world, but a full participation in it from a place of clarity and presence. You continue to experience the full range of human emotion and engage in action, but without the burden of maintaining a separate identity. Actions flow more spontaneously, in harmony with the whole, rather than in service to a limited self-concept. 6. The middle path. The view presented here navigates between extreme positions. It is neither pure materialism, which reduces consciousness to a byproduct of matter, nor solipsism, which denies the existence of anything beyond one's mind. It acknowledges both the relative reality of the manifest world and its ultimate nature as consciousness itself. This middle path recognizes that conventional truths function within their proper context while pointing to deeper truths beyond conceptual understanding. The chair is solid enough to sit on. This is conventionally true. Yet at another level, the chair is mostly empty space, also true. At the deepest level, the chair and the sitter are manifestations of the same consciousness, the ultimate truth. Scientific exploration and spiritual inquiry are not opposed but complementary approaches to understanding reality. Science excels at mapping the relationships between phenomena, while contemplative practices offer direct insight into the nature of the consciousness that perceives phenomena. Both are valuable, neither alone is complete. The integration of these approaches allows for a comprehensive understanding that honors both the remarkable achievements of modern science and the profound insights of contemplative traditions. Quantum physics does not prove spiritual claims, but it does open conceptual space where science and spirituality can engage in meaningful dialogue. This middle path also balances being and becoming, transcendence and immanence. It recognizes both the unchanging awareness that is your essential nature and the ever-changing flow of experience that is its expression. You are both the silent witness and the active participant, both the ocean and its waves. 7. Living the understanding. How does one live from this understanding? not by escaping the world or denying its relative reality, but by being fully present to each moment while maintaining awareness of its essential nature as consciousness. This presence transforms ordinary activities into opportunities for awakening. Washing dishes becomes communion with the elements. Conversation becomes an exchange between different expressions of the same consciousness. Work becomes service to the whole rather than advancement of the separate self. Practice involves bringing gentle awareness to experience without grasping or rejecting. You learn to recognize thoughts as movements within consciousness rather than absolute truths. Emotions are honored as expressions of the life force rather than problems to be solved. Sensations are experienced directly rather than through the filter of conceptual labeling. As awareness becomes more stable, you naturally respond to life's challenges with greater wisdom and compassion. This is not because you have accumulated knowledge or followed rules, but because you are allowing the inherent intelligence of consciousness to operate through you with less interference from conditioned patterns. The path is not linear but spiral, returning again and again to the same essential insights at progressively deeper levels. There may be dramatic openings, moments when the veil of separation parts and you recognize your true nature with crystal clarity. But more commonly, understanding deepens gradually through consistent practice and faithful attention to the present moment. 8. The ever-present origin. In truth, there is no path to awakening because consciousness is already awake. There is no journey to undertake because you are already what you seek. The apparent separation between seeker and sought is itself the final illusion to be dissolved. What appears as a progressive journey in time, from ignorance to awakening, is actually the timeless recognition of what has always been the case. Consciousness does not evolve or improve. It simply recognizes its own nature with increasing clarity. This recognition is not something new, but a return to the ever-present origin, the ground of being that precedes all manifestation, yet expresses itself through all forms. This origin is not in the past, but in the eternal now, accessible wherever attention rests in its own nature without distraction. The universe is not something that happened long ago, but something happening now. Creation is ongoing, consciousness continuously manifesting as the tapestry of existence. You are not separate from this creative process, but its very expression, consciousness, taking the form of a human being to experience itself from that unique perspective. In the depth of silence, in the space between thoughts, in the gap between breaths. Here is where you touch the source, not as something other than yourself, but as your very essence, not as a distant memory or future attainment, but as the living reality of this moment, closer than your own heartbeat, more intimate than your next thought. The question, who am I, when pursued with unwavering attention, leads not to an answer, but to the questioner's dissolution. What remains is not something that can be named or described, but is the source of all names and descriptions. It is pure consciousness, self-luminous awareness, the light by which all experience is known. This is not mystical obscurantism, but the most practical truth. You are not what you think you are, and reality is not what it appears to be. Both you and the world are expressions of the same consciousness, which neither began at birth nor ends at death, but is the timeless context within which all beginnings and endings occur. The full realization of this truth is not an escape from life, but the foundation for living authentically. It frees you from the exhausting struggle to become something other than what you are, allowing energy previously consumed by that struggle to flow into creative expression and compassionate action. In this luminous recognition, the question of whether consciousness creates reality is transcended. Creator and created are recognized as conceptual distinctions within the seamless whole of being. There is only the dance of consciousness with itself, the play of form and emptiness, the endless creativity of existence expressing itself through the miracle of each moment. Consciousness does not enter the present moment. It is the luminous space in which all moments dance into being, recognized when the mind's restless searching surrenders to the perfection of what already is.